The Supreme Court just made a ruling that changed everything about how gun rights work in America. And if you own firearms, you need to understand red flag laws right now because they could take your guns away faster than you think, even if you're a law-abiding gun owner who's never committed a crime. Before we dive in, do me one favor right now. Hit that subscribe button. Why? Because 90% of gun owners miss critical legal updates like this, and I don't want you to be one of them. The information I'm about to share could literally protect your Second Amendment rights when you need it most. So click subscribe now. Here's what just happened. In June 2024, the Supreme Court ruled on a case called United States versus Rahimi, and this decision changed the game for red flag laws across America. The court ruled 8-1 that the government can temporarily take guns away from people who pose a serious threat. This wasn't about criminals or convicted felons. This was about regular people in crisis situations. And that ruling just gave a green light to every state red flag law in the country. Let me break down what this means for you. Right now, in 2026, 22 states have red flag laws on the books. That's California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington. Plus, Washington, D.C. If you live in any of these states, someone can petition a court to take your guns away. And here's the scary part. They don't need to prove you committed a crime. They just need to convince a judge that you might be dangerous. So who can file one of these petitions against you? In most states, it's family members, household members, and law enforcement. But in some states like Maryland and New York, it's even more people. Healthcare workers can file petitions too. In a few states, co-workers can do it. And some states are pushing to let teachers and school officials file them. That means the circle of people who could potentially take your guns is getting bigger every year. Now, let me walk you through exactly how this process works, because this is where it gets really important. Let's say your sister's worried about you. Maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you're just stressed out and said something she didn't like. She can go to court and file what's called an extreme risk protection order. That's the official name for a red flag petition. She fills out some paperwork explaining why she thinks you're dangerous. Then she goes before a judge. Here's the part that shocks most gun owners. In an emergency situation, that judge can issue an order to take your guns away immediately, without you even being there, without you knowing about it, without you getting to tell your side of the story. This is called an emergency order or a temporary order, and it happens fast, sometimes within 24 hours. Once that emergency order is signed, law enforcement shows up at your door. They're not there to arrest you. You didn't break any law, but they're there to take every firearm you own, your hunting rifles, your concealed carry pistol, your shotgun, your AR-15, everything. And you have to hand them over right then and there. If you refuse, now you're breaking the law, and then you could actually get arrested. But wait, there's something even more important here. After that emergency order is issued, you do get your day in court, usually within 7 to 21 days, depending on your state. You'll get a notice in the mail telling you there's a hearing scheduled. At that hearing, you can show up, you can bring a lawyer, you can present evidence, you can call witnesses, you get to defend yourself and explain why you're not a danger to anyone. The burden of proof is on the person who filed the petition. They have to convince the judge with real evidence, not just feelings or hunches. They need to show things like recent threats of violence, reckless use of firearms, history of domestic violence, substance abuse problems, or credible threats to hurt yourself or others. The judge will look at all the evidence from both sides. Then they make a decision. If the judge says no, your guns get returned immediately. Case closed. But if the judge says yes, they issue what's called a final order. And that order typically lasts for 1 year. For that entire year, you can't possess any firearms. You can't buy new ones. You can't even be around guns. If you live with someone who owns guns, you might need to move out, or they need to secure them where you can't access them. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. Every state's law is different, and every situation is unique. If you're facing a red flag petition, you need to talk to an attorney in your state who knows these laws inside and out. Always consult a lawyer for your specific situation. Let me give you some real numbers here, because the data shows how often these laws are actually being used. In 2024 alone, over 17,000 red flag petitions were filed across the United States. That's up from about 6,000 just 2 years earlier. These cases are increasing fast. Connecticut has the highest rate with about 40 petitions per 100,000 people. Here's what the research shows about how these orders are actually being used. About 60% of red flag petitions are filed because of suicide concerns. Someone is worried that a person might hurt themselves. Another big chunk, maybe 10 to 15%, involves threats of mass violence or threats against schools. The rest are situations involving domestic violence, threats against specific people, or other dangerous behavior. And here's a stat that'll blow your mind. Studies estimate that for every 17 red flag orders issued, one suicide is prevented. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found this pattern in multiple states. In California alone, red flag orders have been credited with preventing at least 21 potential mass shootings between 2016 and 2018. Now, I know some of you are thinking, how do we know those shootings would have actually happened? Fair question. We can't know for sure. But in those cases, people had made specific threats, had access to guns, and had detailed plans. The orders stopped them before they could act. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video. I'm covering the exact words to say when police ask about your firearms during a traffic stop. One wrong word can cost you everything. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it. Just click that button below this video. Now let's talk about the part nobody tells you about, the due process protections. Because yes, these laws can take your guns quickly, but they're not supposed to violate your constitutional rights. Every red flag law in the country has to follow certain rules because of the Constitution. First, you have to get notice. They can't just take your guns and never tell you why. You get paperwork explaining what's happening. Second, you get a hearing. A real court hearing with a real judge where you can defend yourself. Third, you have the right to appeal. If you lose at the hearing, you can take it to a higher court. Fourth, you can get your guns back before the year is up. Most states let you petition the court to end the order early. You have to show that you're no longer a threat. Maybe you completed mental health treatment. Maybe the crisis that caused the concern is over. Maybe the original petition was based on false information. If you can prove that, the judge can give your guns back. And here's another protection most people don't know about. In many states, if someone files a false petition against you, they can face criminal charges. If your ex-wife makes up lies just to harass you, and you can prove it, she could go to jail. The law is supposed to protect against abuse of the system. But here's the reality. Does abuse happen? Yes, it does. It's rare, but it happens. I've seen cases where a vengeful ex files a petition with exaggerated claims, cases where family members file petitions over political disagreements, cases where someone files a petition as retaliation. This is why having a good lawyer is so important. A skilled attorney can expose false claims and protect your rights. Let me tell you about what happened after the Parkland school shooting in Florida in 2018. That tragedy killed 17 people. And afterwards, investigators found out the shooter had shown tons of warning signs. Students knew he was dangerous. Teachers knew. His own mother called police multiple times. But nobody could do anything to take his guns away because Florida didn't have a red flag law yet. 3 weeks after that shooting, Florida passed its red flag law. And since then, Florida has issued over 19,000 extreme risk protection orders. Law enforcement says those orders have prevented multiple school shootings and mass casualty events. Indiana passed their red flag law way back in 2005. It's one of the oldest in the country. But even that law couldn't prevent the FedEx facility shooting in Indianapolis in 2021. Why not? Because police had actually seized a shotgun from the shooter a year earlier. But the prosecutor didn't file a red flag case, so the shooter was able to legally buy the rifles he used in the attack that killed 8 people. After that tragedy, Indianapolis changed their procedures to make sure cases go directly to a judge instead of through the prosecutor's office first. Here's where we are right now in 2026. Support for red flag laws is actually pretty high, for just across the political spectrum. Surveys show about 72 to 85% of Americans support these laws. Even among gun owners, support is around 78%. But here's the interesting part. Even though these laws have bipartisan support in polls, they're becoming more partisan in practice. Republican-controlled states are passing laws that ban red flag laws. Missouri, Wyoming, and several other states have passed what they call Second Amendment sanctuary laws that prohibit local enforcement of red flag laws. So we've got this weird situation where half the country is expanding red flag laws and the other half is blocking them. And that creates a patchwork where your rights depend entirely on which state you live in. Hey, here's a crazy stat. Only 12% of people watching this video are actually subscribed. That means 88% of you are at risk of missing critical legal updates that could protect your gun rights. Don't be in that 88%. Hit the subscribe button right now and join the community of informed gun owners who stay ahead of these legal changes. Now let me give you some practical advice. What should you do if you're worried someone might file a red flag petition against you? First, take it seriously. If family members are expressing concern about your mental health or your behavior, don't blow them off. If you're going through a rough time, get help. See a therapist, talk to your doctor, join a support group. Taking care of your mental health isn't weakness, it's being responsible. Second, be very careful about what you say, especially online. Don't make jokes about violence. Don't post angry rants about hurting people. Don't make threats, even as a joke. In today's world, everything you post can and will be used against you in court. Prosecutors screenshot everything. One bad Facebook post could cost you your gun rights for a year. Third, if someone does file a petition against you, lawyer up immediately. Do not go to that hearing alone. Do not try to represent yourself. Red flag hearings are real legal proceedings with real consequences. You need an attorney who knows these laws. They can challenge the evidence, cross-examine witnesses, and present your side of the story effectively. Fourth, secure your firearms properly even before any petition is filed. If you're going through a crisis, consider voluntarily storing your guns with a trusted friend or at a gun range or storage facility. Some states are even setting up programs where you can temporarily store guns with law enforcement and get them back when you're doing better. This shows responsibility and it protects you if someone does file a petition. Here's something else you need to know. Red flag laws are changing fast. Right now in 2026, several states are considering new legislation. Some states want to expand who can file petitions. Others want to make the process stricter. Some want to increase the penalties for false petitions. And some states are trying to pass federal red flag legislation that would apply nationwide. That federal bill hasn't passed yet, but it keeps coming back up in Congress. The Supreme Court's Rahimi decision in 2024 basically said red flag laws are constitutional as long as they have proper due process protections, but that doesn't mean every red flag law is automatically okay. Courts are still deciding challenges to specific state laws. Some states have had their laws struck down or modified because they didn't have strong enough protections. Let me give you a hypothetical example to show how this works. Let's say your name is John, you're 35 years old, you own 3 handguns and a rifle, you've never been arrested, never committed any crime, but you just lost your job. Your wife left you. You're drinking more than usual. One night you post on Facebook that you don't see a point in living anymore. Your brother sees that post and gets worried, really worried. The next day, he goes to court and files an extreme risk protection order petition. The judge looks at the evidence, your Facebook post, your brother's statement that you've been depressed and drinking, the fact that your brother knows you own guns. The judge issues an emergency order that same day. By that evening, police are at your door asking for your firearms. You're confused and angry, but you hand them over because you don't want to break the law. 2 weeks later, you get a notice about a hearing. You hire a lawyer. At the hearing, your brother testifies about his concerns. You testify that you were just venting online, that you're not actually suicidal, that you've started seeing a therapist. Your lawyer presents evidence that you've enrolled in an alcohol treatment program. The judge has to decide. Are you a danger to yourself? After hearing everything, the judge issues a final order for 6 months instead of a full year. For those 6 months, you can't have your guns. But if you complete treatment and stay stable, you can petition to get them back early. That's how it's supposed to work. Is it perfect? No. But it's designed to balance public safety with gun rights. The question is whether it actually does that balance correctly. And that's where people disagree. This information could literally save your rights. And speaking of rights, laws are changing fast. Subscribe now so you're never caught off guard when new gun legislation drops. The next video covers the 5 biggest legal mistakes gun owners make during police encounters. You don't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button. So where does this leave us in 2026? Here's the bottom line. Red flag laws are here to stay in at least half the country. The Supreme Court has said they're generally constitutional. More states are considering them, and usage is increasing every single year. If you own firearms, you need to understand how these laws work in your state. You need to know who can file a petition against you. You need to know what happens if someone does file one. You need to know your rights during the process. And you need to know how to protect yourself both legally and practically. Being a responsible gun owner in 2026 means more than just knowing how to safely handle and store your firearms. It means understanding the legal landscape and how to navigate it. If you're going through a mental health crisis, get help. If someone expresses concern about your safety or the safety of others, take it seriously. If you're in a domestic dispute, be extra careful because domestic situations are the most common trigger for red flag petitions. If you're dealing with substance abuse, get treatment before someone petitions the court. Being proactive protects you and protects your gun rights. Remember, these laws are designed as temporary measures during crisis situations. They're not supposed to be permanent gun confiscation. If you play by the rules, get help when you need it, and show that you're not a threat, you can get your firearms back. But you have to work within the system. Look, I know this is a controversial topic. Some of you think red flag laws are necessary to prevent tragedies. Some of you think they violate the Second Amendment. Some of you are somewhere in between. Whatever your opinion, the reality is these laws exist. And as a gun owner, you need to know how they affect you. The data shows they're being used more and more, over 67,000 times since 1999, with the majority of those happening just in the last few years. Whether you support them or oppose them, you can't ignore them. Knowledge is power. Understanding how these laws work gives you power to protect your rights if you ever face a red flag petition. So here's your action plan. First, learn the specific red flag law in your state. Every state is different. Look up who can file petitions, what the process looks like, and what your rights are. Second, if you're going through a tough time, be proactive. Get help before someone feels they need to file a petition. Third, be smart about what you say and post online. Fourth, if you do face a petition, get a lawyer immediately. And fifth, stay informed about changes to gun laws in your state. These laws aren't going anywhere. In fact, they're probably going to expand to more states. The political momentum is there. The Supreme Court has given them a green light, and public support remains high. As a gun owner in 2026, you're living in a complex legal environment. Understanding red flag laws is just part of being an informed, responsible gun owner. Before we wrap up, let me say this. This information could literally protect you from losing your Second Amendment rights, but only if you stay informed. Subscribe to this channel right now. Don't wait until you're facing a red flag petition to learn about these laws. Don't wait until police are at your door. Get ahead of it now. Click that subscribe button so you never miss an update on gun laws, legal changes, and how to protect your rights. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay legal, and stay informed. I'll see you in the next video where we break down exactly what to do during a police encounter when you're carrying concealed. You don't want to miss that one. Subscribe now. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. Gun laws vary by state and change frequently. If you're facing a legal issue involving firearms or red flag laws, consult with a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction who can advise you based on your specific circumstances and current law.